Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Table for More. Thank you, Philip, for that beautiful opening. I'm Liz Eschen, the Vice President of NATS Boston, and I'm here with my committee, along with our co-host organizations, Boston Singers Resource and Greater Boston Choral Consortium. We're so excited to have you all here at this table. Just a few things before we get going. You will be on mute for the better part of the keynote presentation, and then when we go into breakout rooms, you can mute and unmute yourselves as we speak. If we want to keep the chat mostly clear until then you can save your questions and comments for those situations and in the end when we wrap up. This will be recorded so that people who are not able to join us can join us in the next week to come. And let's agree at the onset, and Philip can speak more about this, that we will keep this a place of respect, collegiality, and as Philip just so beautifully put, more love. So Philip, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Liz. Good morning, everyone. And I have to remember that most of you are on Eastern time, so it's a little after 11. That's my native time, by the way. I'm here in the Midwest now, but I grew up in Georgia, so Eastern time is what I'm used to. I'm so thrilled to partner with my good friend Liz. Just have so much respect and admiration for Liz and all of my new friends at NATS Boston and the Singers Resource and the Greater Boston Choral Consortium as well for inviting me to take part in this conversation. It began literally as Liz saying, hey, you want to come talk about your choir a little bit, to turning into me saying, well, what if we do this, this, and this? And now we've got a 4-week series with hopefully an actionable plan that you all will commit to continue to work together for the next year. So I took a moment to peek at all of you there. I saw your faces, and now I'm just back on my screen. So we're going to dive right in because it's a packed day to kind of begin to unpack some of this conversation behind Table for More. So here's what I hope we'll accomplish today. We're going to start at the ending first. Our shopping list, our ingredients, we'll talk about that. Our recipe, talking about the singers of this age and some of the terms for our time together. Then we'll move into the breakout groups, and hopefully, if all goes well, we'll have a little dessert, which is a little Q&A, and kind of prepping for next week and introducing you to the form that Kristen set up so that we can continue to have conversation throughout the week between now and next Wednesday. I wanted you to see this statement while I introduce Vocal Essence to you. I'm not going to talk a lot about Vocal Essence, the organization, but I thought it would be helpful for you to see this statement that we released after the murder of George Floyd. Vocal Essence is a 52-year-old choral organization that was founded by Philip Brunel, who is still our artistic director and my colleague now. Vocal Essence has for many years celebrated cultures through the concert stage and through education programs. Vocal Essence has commissioned artists and brought artists to the stage, artists of color, that is, to the stage to perform with us and amplified voices. But yet and still, we recognize that there's so much more to do. And so I was the primary author of this statement that you see here. I am the only person of color on the staff, principal staff of the organization. And it's a wonderful organization, people who really care about equity, inclusion, and access, and all of the things that are wrapped up with those sentiments. But it was really interesting to pen this statement from the perspective not only of me, but my colleagues, of how we can commit to do more in this space. And that's where I want to open with you to say that I'm not an expert. I am a Black man who has lived an existence that reflects my Black skin, but I also come from parents who owned a business and was a teacher. So I have experienced a lot of privilege and a lot of success in this music business. I am a product of the systemic system that we are trying to look at right now. So I am listening and learning just as much as the next person to my Black and brown siblings who are on the outside of our music scene, the classical plus music scene, to see where I'm missing the mark just like you're doing the same thing. So we enter into this together. I'm not a racial equity coach. I'm not trained. I have been through intercultural competency training, which I'll talk with you about that, and something that we'll look into and delve into. And as I said, I've lived a wide and varied existence. So I'm going to share with you a lot of things that have come from my experience, from my readings, from my conversation with my other peers and colleagues that hopefully will help us to begin to set this table for more. Because if you saw um, my demo video, I love to eat. There's nothing better than a good meal with friends. That's how my community kind of, when you break bread together, that means you are family. You're in it together. So we can't do that right now in this pandemic. It's really kind of strange, but we can break bread via Zoom. And I see this as our opportunity to begin to have conversation together, so that we can move forward in a way that we allow more people to join us, or we invite more people to join us around our table. So I want to ask you to think about these two questions. Where have you been and what have you done, either personally or as an organization? And we're going to come back to this during the breakout sessions today. So you can take a screenshot of this if you like to, take a picture. You know, have you or have your organization celebrated cultures of color? Have you amplified voices of color? Have you commissioned composers of color? Have you hired artists of color? Have you been part of developing programs that reduce barriers to participation to those who are in marginalized communities? And have you been part of making programming accessible to communities of color? Liz has just put the poll out for you now. You know, take a moment and just answer honestly. I'm just curious to see what comes up. Think about it for a moment here. There's nothing to gain by just saying yes if you're not sure. There's also no shame in saying yes if your organization has been on the front edge of doing some of these things here. This is going to guide our conversation for lesson number 4, or webinar number 4, when we really work on our action plan, because that's the webinar where I'm going to leave you with some really tangible areas, kind of containers that you can work with towards creating space for more people to join you at the table in our action plan, ways that you can move forward. Love seeing how many of you are answering the poll right now. Keep that going here. I'm going to
Philip, may
skip
I
to
ask
the,
a question?
sure.
What specifically do you mean by amplified voices of color?
To amplify a voice of color, John, means when you have given someone access to your platform and they're able to speak on your platform. So at Vocal Essence, when we bring in Melanie DeMore to come and be at Orchestra Hall and be our headliner, we have amplified her music, we have amplified her voice and given her a stage that she might not be able to get otherwise.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that question, John. Language is so important. So anytime you have questions like that, we can jump in, and I'll try to keep my eye on the chat too. And Liz, you can also just hop in if someone asks something in the chat that I'm not seeing. So our shopping list for today, keeping with our food theme here, these are the ways I want you to consider engaging for the next several weeks, if not months and years. First of all, can you commit to curiosity? Can you commit just to be open to the possibilities in conversations with your peers? You can only realize what you visualize. I'm really keen about this. We limit the possibilities because we don't dream big enough. So if you can visualize something, you can bring it to reality. And I think that especially in the world that we live in now, around race relations, around access issues, around equitable issues, if we can dream the world that we want to see, like Langston Hughes said, a world where people no person scorn, where love will bless the earth and peace its paths adorn, we can work towards bringing that to reality. Can we all commit to listen to understand? This one's hard for me because I'm a talker. I want to jump in sometimes thinking I know what you're going to say. Can we all commit just to listen to understand, not to speak? But when we do speak, can we speak to be understood rather than to convince or persuade? just to be understood? Can we model brave space behavior in our conversation? And part of that is what I've said here with listening to understand and speaking to be understood. But also by that, knowing that we're all going to make a mistake, we're all going to say something and put it out there sometimes. Can we allow each other to walk something back and say, wait a second, that's not exactly what I meant to say. Can I do that again? And just give each other the space and the grace to practice this language, this new terminology, this new and strange conversation with each other. Can we take risks knowing that we will, yeah, that, because we're all going to do it. And I put that word there with the asterisks intentionally because we're going to step in it. And one of the things we have to realize is that no matter what choices we make, someone's always going to disagree with us. Someone's always going to be upset with us. So we have to lead with honor, lead with integrity, lead with intention when we step out, and just know that sometimes we're going to step in it, and that's okay. It's all about how we get out of it and clean up our shoes afterwards that matters most. We don't want to walk around with that stuff forever. Can we challenge your assumptions? This one's a tough one also. Challenge your assumptions. Can we realize that two things can be true at the same time, and can we hold two things side by side simultaneously? Leaning into discomfort. These conversations are going to get uncomfortable. Can we lean in? Can we ask clarifying questions? Can we again seek to understand before we pass judgment rather than shying away from the discomfort? My favorite here, can we embrace the messy middle? Change happens in the gray area. You know, I'm a fan of Seinfeld. That black and white cookie thing, I still think about that episode of the black and white cookie, and it's, you know, when you eat the middle of the cookie, that's where the best flavor is. And change really happens in the messy middle. We are creatures, especially musicians, of habit and routine and of technique and right and wrong, but we've got to embrace the messiness, that there are really no right answers. There are a lot of partial answers and a lot of yes ands, which we're going to see in just a moment. Can we assume good intentions in each other and always be aware of our impact? Sometimes our intention doesn't land with the impact that we want it to have, and we need to be mindful of that. And that's another way we can practice this brave conversation. And here it is: give yes and a chance. Sometimes it's nice if someone says something you're thinking, well, that's not where I was going. Rather than saying no, can it be yes? And let me add this to it. Can we add on, create run-on sentences with each other? Hopefully my neighbors won't cut the grass. Not too many planes are going to fly over. It's a gorgeous day. That's why I'm outside. So I hope you'll be able to hear me. There's the whole list together. I'll remind you of these each week in this lump form, but I wanted to take time to walk through them because these are principles that will really help you as you walk this journey towards intercultural competency and this journey of racial reconciliation and of creating space for those who are not on the inside of our classical music and arts scene. As we look at the poll here, I think you all can still see it also there. It's nice to see about 50% of you in most of the categories have done some of these things. The two areas that seem to be the least committed to are commissioning composers of color and then making programming accessible to communities. And so, interestingly enough, we'll talk about that some today, particularly the programming piece. I'm going to share those results. I think now you can see them. Maybe I had to share them first there, so now you can see. So let's clarify our purpose. This is something else I want you to reflect on throughout today's time together. Step one, can you begin to identify and articulate your why? Each of us has a why we're in the room today, why this topic matters to us, and why now? Why is the time now? So think on that. When we get to the breakout rooms, this will be one of the things the facilitators may ask you to share a little bit of, because it's important that we clarify why we're here and our intention, in order to then go to the next step, which is to identify and articulate our core values. All of us have core values that we live by personally, hopefully professionally as well. So my questions to you are, can you articulate and identify what your organization believes in or what you believe in as it relates to music, as it relates to the people who participate in our art form and how our art form should continue to evolve and grow and incorporate more people? This is very important that you're honest with yourself exactly how you feel. I think about in my church music setting, I'm one who loves spontaneity, but I also love ritual. So, being able to name some of those paradoxes there, holding two things as being true. In my professional choir world with vocal essence, I love the precision of unified vowels and cutoffs, yet I also love the spontaneity of being able to change the tempo and performance based on what the concert hall feels like in that moment. Okay, can you really name what your core values are musically, but also with respect to who and how people engage with music? Because this is going to be an interesting one that's going to then allow us in step 3 to see if our why for being here aligns with our core values. I'm going to push you hard on this. You've got to reflect on these two to see if there's synergy. And if there's not synergy, that's okay. There may be discomfort and dissonance. For instance, you may only want to perform music that is read off of notated score. You have no desire to work with oral learning or music learned by ear, as people would say. But yet you're here because you want to diversify your performing ensemble. You've got to lean into that discomfort and that dissonance and begin to unpack that and figure out which one is going to win out, or better yet, how they're going to work together to make room for someone to be a part of your organization or your audience who may only want to participate by oral tradition. And yes, there's a place for them in every organization, even our professional organizations. There's some space for them if we think broadly about it and we think creatively about how we organize our artistic regime and our programming. So with that context in mind, I'm going to take the next bulk of my time with the presentation here to share with you a choir that I created 3 years ago as a part of Vocal Essence. I mentioned a moment ago a 52-year-old organization, mostly white. We're in Minnesota, mostly Lutheran. Most of you know Vocal Essence has a great legacy, sings beautifully, sings a wide array of music. Philip Burnell has commissioned so many pieces. That's kind of our bread and butter, is to do the new, the different, expect the unexpected. People of all colors and all backgrounds that we commission, but yet our choirs and our audiences historically have been mostly white, in the range of 90% plus. Except for 2 concerts a year, our Witness concert, which celebrates the contributions of the Black community to our shared heritage, and our Cantaré concert, where we have composers from Mexico come and work in the schools. Those 2 concerts tend to have a little bit more diversity, not as much as you would think. Mostly white, all the time. This organization allowed me the ability to create a new ensemble that looks nothing like the rest of the organization right now on the stage, but yet the values that we are beginning to embrace throughout the whole organization, from the professional corps to the volunteer adult choir, through our senior choirs, through the Vocal Essence Singers of This Age youth choir, are beginning to align. And hopefully we'll begin to see over time a change in the whole organization. Right now, we see this change very readily and rapidly in the singers of this age. So embracing the circle is what I call it, fostering community across difference. The choir was created in 2017 with the goals of expanding the range of possibilities associated with choral music. My background is I grew up in a missionary Baptist church in Georgia, so on Sundays I would sing spirituals and gospel and anthems by Black composers. Monday through Saturday, I was in my school choirs and orchestra, including the Columbus Boy Choir. So I was singing all the European classics. My high school choir teacher was a Lutheran, so I would go to her church. Some of my best friends were in the Jewish synagogue. We would sing there. So I was exposed to all kinds of music every day of the week. I considered it all choral music. I was singing, and I was singing with groups. I come to realize in my adult life, people have really specific blinders and lens on what choral music is. So my goal was, could we create something that expands people's minds about what could be considered choral music? Secondly, could we reduce the barriers to participation in the choral art form? And I'll come to that a little bit more later when we talk about access. Third, could we reflect the cultural and social economic diversity of the Twin Cities and its membership? Because moving from Atlanta, Georgia, I was under the impression that the Twin Cities was all Scandinavian. And while it is mostly Scanda-Norwegian, there's a wealth of diversity here. It is such a beautiful tapestry of people here from different backgrounds in this community, the greater Twin Cities area, and also outstate in different pockets. But what I've noticed, like most communities, people stick together. So could we create an ensemble that brought young people together from the different neighborhoods of primarily Minneapolis and St. Paul into one space to create a united ensemble where we amplify, using that word again, John, where we amplify and celebrate their identities and affirm their identities, all the ways that they identify, but also begin to see the things that tie us together. It's an immersive program, as I mentioned, open to any 9th through 12th graders, primarily focusing on Minneapolis and St. Paul because there's a number of youth choirs in the suburbs, but there was nothing for high school students here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Third, the members were selected to participate upon a successful completion of an interview process. And I'm going to talk about that a little more later in access because there are some things that I intentionally did differently to make the program more accessible, which led us to get the diversity and the representation that we've had now for 3 years running. The program gives many opportunities for young people to awaken creativity, to nurture their self-expression, to promote achievement through academics and leadership, and most importantly, to explore a diverse, integrated approach to singing, artistic creation, and collaboration. The picture on the right was a drawing by one of our students in quarantine as a part of our Creative Connections. We created 3 art galleries where we posed the first person in the chain a prompt, and they created an artistic product, a song, a recipe, a poem, a painting, a drawing, and then that got passed to the next person who only saw that piece of art, and then they created something and it was passed down. This one was in response to one of our co-created songs, We Are the Peace Within the Hate. I'll probably play that as a lead in one of the days of our workshops. So now I'd like for you to meet 3 of my singers.
Hello, my name is Stefan. I'm an 11th grader and I've been in Vocal Lessons Soda for 3 years. Vocal Lessons is simply the best thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life. I'm so glad that Philip decided to create this thing, and I'm so glad that I decided to be a part of it.
Hello, my name is Geraldine, and this is my first year in Vocal Lessons Singers at this age. Ever since I joined Vocal Lessons Soda, I feel like they're just a family to me. I miss them. They bring joy to my faces every time I see them, and I love being in this choir, and it's an amazing opportunity.
Hello, my name is Keon. I am a Vocal Lessons Singers at this age alumni. I graduated from high school and on to bigger and better things. Being with Soda, it was like the greatest ever. I wouldn't change this experience for anything, and I recommend this experience to anyone who wants to be themselves and wants to, create bonds and meet new people and, perform in great places. This is definitely the place to be. But us as Vocal Legends, we encourage, you guys, the people who are listening to this video, to have hope, through our dark times with this, coronavirus and things going on. And, we're spreading hope through song. So the song I'll be singing for you guys today is called Johnny Met Donna by Molly Music. Johnny met Donna and they fell in love, but had no idea what love really was. but they tried their best to make each other smile. But while learning themselves, they would have a child. But with no time to think the whole thing through, little time to prepare, it got tough to provide for him and give him love and care.
So I wanted you to meet our students. You're going to meet more of them and to hear a few of them sing. Those introductions were all created
Hello,
in quarantine. And there's Stefan again. So those were created in March as part of our VE Soda Shares Hope. Each of the singers was invited to, from their own home, to just create a 2.5-minute video introducing themselves and sharing their song of hope. And so everything they said about soda was all unsolicited, which I love that about these kids. And we'll talk more about them in a little bit. Part of the reason they say those things without me prompting them is because of our core values. This is what defines everything that I do, everything that we do for the vocal essence singers of this age, to the detriment sometimes of the musical product. The most important thing to me is that we create a safe space. And I'm one who believes a safe space is possible. I know most people are saying brave space. What I mean by a safe space, it's a place where participants know that they belong. They absolutely, without question, know that this is their space. They are encouraged to believe in themselves and also in any dreams that they have. And they know they can talk openly about those dreams, no matter how far-fetched they may seem, and we will strategize together the steps it may take to get there. And most importantly, they know that they will be accepted just as they are. I cannot stress the importance of that for young people, but also our young at heart. I work with singers from the age, 6 or 7 through 90 plus in church choirs. And these same principles apply to me, whether it's the Vocal Essence Ensemble Singers Professional Choir, the Georgia All-State Choir, SOTA, or Children's Choir. People have to know they belong, that I believe in them and their dreams, and that they are accepted. There's nothing they can do to not be accepted as they are. I may get mad at them, I may get upset, I may get frustrated, I may come down on them, but I accept them as they are. That's at the core of everything that we do. Those are our core values, which leads to this framework that we are still creating and refining. But it's the idea of the circle. The circle involves our singers and their families, our alumni, our alumnus, got to work with Keon on that one, our communities that we all come from, and the world at large. We nurture relationships is what our goal is. The ability to cultivate meaningful and sustained engagement between our singers and their families, the many collaborating artists that we work with, and I'll share more about that in a little while. We work with a lot of artists. It's a fundamental principle of the ensemble. And within the community, really directly correlates to the depth of impact that we make. So we spend quite a bit of time fostering relationships within the choir and also looking outward to the community that we live in. Malcolm is one of our recent graduates. He was a senior this year. Listen to a little bit of his story.
Hello, my name is Malcolm, and I'm a part of Vocal Essence Singers of This Age. This is my second year. I'm a senior now. I'm so glad I joined Vocal Essence Singers of This Age because it's opened me to new people and new experiences. Like, I've never performed at any of the places we performed at before, and I never dreamed of it either. And like, a while ago, being in choir would have been something that's like, no, I don't do that in my head. And, well, look at me now. I mean, it's the second year, and we've performed at least over 100 times. I think, I don't know, I can't count. But we'd like to.
I love Malcolm. And you would never know by looking at Malcolm. Malcolm is 50% Black and 50% Hmong. And that's one of the things that leads me to the next topic here. We're going to look at our 4 items when we're thinking about creating a space for more, making room for more, providing a space for more people to belong in our singing circle. The ingredients are race, the ingredients are access, inclusion with that capital C, and equity. And it's the intersection of the two. If we look at it as a Venn diagram, it's where those intersect and overlap that we have that space for other people to join us. So as you move into the breakout rooms, one of the things I want you to consider today and then throughout the week in between, we'll put some prompts in the form to see if we can engage in some dialogue, is which one of the four, after we talk about them, do you feel like you have made the most progress in already? Which one of the four do you feel like you're further along the continuum? With me, everything in life is a continuum. And you know that continuum. I love that image because it's really not so much about right or wrong. It's about moving in a certain direction. Okay, we choose, we have intention, and we move in that direction, and we keep moving farther along in that direction as we gain knowledge and understanding and wisdom and experience. So when we begin to talk about and unpack race, access, inclusion, and equity, I really want you to hold dear to your heart with yourself or your organization, which one do you have the most relationship building in already, the most experience in, the most success, dare I say, in, and which one is the greatest opportunity for growth? And you don't know me well yet, but I'm going to say lean into the one that is the greatest opportunity for growth. For the next 4 weeks, absolutely acknowledge the one that you've made the most progress in, but lean into the one at the back of the spectrum where you may be the most uncomfortable while we have this time to talk and dialogue and gain the support of your peers around you, your colleagues around you, to help you unpack and begin to figure out a way forward. Race, as defined by the Webster Dictionary, is a class or kind of people unified by shared interests, habits, or characteristics. I really think that definition is so interesting. What I think is interesting about it is that it talks about shared interest. Then it says habits or characteristics. We all think about race as the one on my right here, a category of humankind that shares certain distinctive physical traits, right? That's what we think about race. But it's so interesting that the Webster's Dictionary, founded in 1828 or something like that, has expanded now to talk about basically the cultural competency, you know, the things that each cultural community does that we kind of pass down, that just happens when you're a part of a community. Those shared interests and habits become parts of the ways that we identify. And I say to you, friends, even though I can only see my screen right now, that's the hardest thing about Zoom. I know you're looking at me and I wish I could see you. I have learned so much in the last 3 years. I was a public school educator for many years, taught middle school, elementary, high school, mostly middle school, and did a lot of consulting in high school classrooms after I left the teaching world myself. I have learned so much the last 3 years from these young people in SOTA about thinking about identity as a broad and multifaceted situation. We identify in so many different ways. Race is one of a subsection of the ways that we identify, and race is usually connected, kind of hooked at the hip to many of the other ways we identify. So as you begin to unpack race, think about culture. Think about food. Think about musical choices, obviously. Think about what was I going to say there? Think about clothing. Think about hair. All of these things that sometimes we pass off, we take for granted, they are so important. You look at Soliana there. I remember the day that she got that in. I remember how much she paid for it. And I had to ask her to take that out because she was playing, we were doing Moana. And she was playing Moana. And I said, you've got to change your hair. I will. And she looked at me horrified. I said, I will pay you to take it out and go natural so you can look like Moana. But, you know, I had to acknowledge and meet her knowing that this is a point of pride. What I have done to my hair here, it is a part of my identity, getting this weave in. And you're asking me to take it out? Schultz, you lost your mind, right? So begin to unpack race with all of those things that we consider to be ancillary. They really are all a part of the ingredients that go into race. I thought you'd be interested in seeing the demographics of SOTA over the first 3 years. And so here they are, just right there. We begin to track a little more this year. Each year we're getting more tracking in. But you can see that we've been pretty true to form in our third goal, which was to reflect the cultural and social economic demographics of the Twin Cities. It's really exciting. We are actually above a couple of years above where we want it to be with the number of cultures represented in the choir. I still think it is the most diverse choral ensemble in the state of Minnesota. Not just racially, you look at our first year, we were like 44 females and 14 males that first year, and now that's evened out. And in all 3 years, we have had students who have identified as non-binary or on the transitioning to transgender or agender. And as we've clarified our language and learned to talk with them more and they feel more comfortable sharing, we're able to specify a little more. But I share this with you, again, coming back to the lens of an organization that's mostly white led, mostly white musicians in a mostly white art form. Look at the people who are at our table for the singers of this age. The reason we're able to get them at the table is because here's how I consider race from the artistic standpoint. That was one of the barriers that I thought would come up, was race. Well, what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to affirm each and every person and empower them, that no matter what their religious perspective, persuasion, or perspective is, no matter what their likes or dislikes are, that they are going to be accepted, that we want to know more about them. We want to learn their culture. We want to maybe even experience some of your food together as we do our shared meals back in the days that we could have potlucks and things. We didn't create soda, and this is something that we ran into with the Karenni community, where some of the parents thought that we were wanting their children to assimilate, and so we would have an issue where they would come for a while and then would kind of tail off, and we'd have to try to go find them and figure out what was going on. And it took me kind of going to their church and being a part of their service and hanging out to really get them to understand, I don't want to take any of your culture away from you, just like I don't want you to take mine away from me. I want us to share and understand and begin this dialogue through music, because music is only a shared language if we're speaking the same language, if we have understood each other. We say music is shared language, but we have to understand the code together. We have to let each other in on the code and unpack that together. So the first thing we do is empower and affirm identities and spend a lot of time with conversation there. The second thing that all of our organizations can do is to really connect with diverse artists. So part of the SOTA model, and we do call singers at this age SOTA, part of the SOTA model is that I make myself less so that my singers can have more. I can conduct almost anything and learn almost anything, but if I have people from West Africa here that can teach a piece from Ghana, why not bring them in for a 3 or 4 week residency and let them curate that process with me standing side by side? We work with lots of composers, both composers in the Tim to Cash, Jocelyn Hagan, Libby Larson world, who notate scores, and we sit and we do the usual. You know, we've all done that together. We would run a rehearsal jointly with a composer that way. But also people like Chadwick Niles Phillips, who is a hip hop artist in our area, who will come in and we will teach a song together by oral tradition, even freestyling, adding in freestyling moments there in front of the kids, creating it together, co-creation to take to the stage. So we have singers, we have dance instructors, we have speech coaches, we have artists, we have people from the sports and entertainment world coming in oftentimes, just because we want to keep them focused on a broader perspective of how they can develop as human beings. Most importantly, I want them to be in front of as many artists as possible. We even have voice coaches who are there nearly every week. One of our voice coaches, Corey, is in the room today watching the presentation. I saw you there, Corey. Glad you can make it. The third thing is that we explore a wide range of genres and vocal timbres and learning styles. So yes, we focus on sight reading, but sight reading is held side by side with learning by oral tradition. And so we do improvisation at every gathering. We learn by oral tradition at every gathering just as much as we do our standard sheet music. We will sing Orlando Di Lasso, the Echo song, and Mendelssohn Heilig, and turn right around and sing a South African hymn of praise, Diko Kele Bawo, or a song from the Republic of Georgia, Mravo Jamie, in the same program. The idea is that our programming is thematic based, where we're telling a story, so I can plug in any song from any era, from any style period. And my job and our vocal coach's job is to empower them and give them the skills, help them acquire the facility to sing in that style as efficiently, as freely, as healthily as possible, knowing that when you're singing in the Eastern European style, there's a little bit more pressure, much like in gospel or opera, than there is when you're singing in the bel canto style. And we have to unpack that and give them experiences with that, so they know, again, with the continuum, when I've gone too far and it hurts, and when I haven't given enough, as far as where the sound is being directed and what kind of breath I'm putting into it. These are the considerations that we have to be willing to think about and unpack for ourselves, our own comfort level. For those of you who are not a Black person, or a person of a Latinx background, or any other person of color, as we like to say, this doesn't mean that you should not engage with this music. You should. I'm here to tell you, you should be singing Negro spirituals as much as possible, because it is American music. It's some of the first music created on the soil of this land once we did what we did to get this land. I'm not going to go into that. We know how it became America. But it's important that we sing this music. The problem becomes when we don't have the proper context and we don't learn it ourselves and then share that with our singers. And so this is where bringing in diverse artists to not only help you unpack the music, but to also help bring it to life for your singers and your musicians is important. And we'll talk more about that in week number 3 with Daryl Taylor and Marcus Garrett. I want you to meet Isaiah. This is a little bit of a longer segment. Isaiah is one of our charter members. He's going to be a senior this year, and the story will tell itself.
I want people everywhere to know SOTA and know what SOTA stands for, because SOTA stands for something that I believe the entire world can understand. SOTA stands for Singers of This Age, and this age is a new age that people like me, teenagers, are helping to build. My name is Isaiah Bates, and I've been in SOTA for about 3 years. I came to find out about SOTA one day during my freshman year of high school. I was in choir class, and my choir teacher actually told me to go get Philip at the door. So I went out to go get Philip, and when I heard that he was like a choir director, my first thought was that, you know, he was a white guy, kind of skinny, with a full head of hair. And then I got to the door and I saw him and I was like, oh, that's not what I thought at all. So I brought him to the choir classroom and he introduced the idea of the youth choir to us. And I was actually really excited about it because I thought it was going to be a wonderful way to develop my voice. So I took a shot and I auditioned.
Watching Isaiah grow in the SOTA program in the last few years has been amazing. He's wide open now, fearless, courageous, daring, creative. I mean, you name it, Isaiah has taken it, ate it up, and delivered a whole different sum of what he's taken in. And it's just like, that's my son. That's my baby boy, you know? And I can't be prouder. I can't be.
I've come to actually love my voice, coming from a place of not really being at the best terms with it, knowing that everybody's voice is different and mine is just my voice. You know, it's what makes me unique, and it's just another aspect of me that I've come to learn to grow with. through soda, I've become more myself. I've been able to come out of my shell. Back in freshman year, I remember I was a shy kid. But now, through the people that have been in soda, I've been able to come out of my shell more and be more myself, which I think also bled through into my home life, where I'm not that ashamed to wear what I want to wear, or say the things that I want to say, or feel what I want to feel. I'm able to do that and not be judged.
I'm enjoying the ride. I really am. As a parent, I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be.
I love all of my kids in the choir. I especially love Isaiah. We've been on this great journey together, and I know all of you are laughing there. I almost went to go see the slides to see if you could see me. Yes, I'm not skinny and I don't have a head full of hair. But, right, when someone says a choir director named Philip Schultz is coming to your school, we all have assumptions. And I do go to the schools. That's one of the secret sauces, is that I level the playing field. I visit about 30 schools each fall in a normal year to talk about the choir. And now that there are singers in the choir from about 20 different schools, they do a lot of the talking about the choir in the classrooms, and I just show up and kind of smile. But it's that idea of meeting them where they are on their playing field, beginning to understand who they are and letting them know that, hey, I'm willing to dish and learn a little bit about you. Why don't you learn about me? These kids who joined the program 3 years ago literally took a risk and were early adopters when a man who they didn't know just said, come join me for this choir where, and I'll let the cat out of the bag, we're going to pay for everything, transport you everywhere, give you food, let you perform at Orchestra Hall and all these places. Everything's taken care of. All you have to do is show up. I think about when I was growing up, my parents would have been like, run away, stay away. But these kids and their parents took a chance on that conversation that we had, which I'll unpack with you in a little bit here, just getting to know them and explaining our intentions. And that's how this program was launched. It was all launched on personal connection and interaction. So our social learning framework, fostering community connection across differences as it relates to artistic endeavors. And I do want to say one other thing. The really powerful thing about Isaiah that I want to unpack for everyone is, as an African-American man, as a black teenager, for Isaiah to now be open with his homosexuality, to be open and affirmed, is huge. Because in our community, there's still a stigma there in many parts, particularly those in the black church. And I remember watching Isaiah navigate that, and how his grandmother and his dad have both come along now and understand and accept him for who he is. And that's why when his dad says, I couldn't be prouder, it's a huge thing to see a young man, a young black man, be able to live out his flamboyant best lifestyle in every situation and not have to hide that. That's the power of what we all have the ability to do through this music thing, is to give people a space where they can tap into that courageous, brave part of their heart and channel that and take it with them to the rest of their lives, the rest of their existence, if we open our spaces to be a table for more. So by singing together, we allow our singers in Soda to explore their own personal artistry. You heard Keon singing earlier. I wanted you to hear that one specifically because I can't do all those runs that he did. I love hearing that and then coaching him on how to do it effectively, but not imitating me. So we coach them and help them to explore their own personal artistry, which then in turn helps our choral artistry as a group, because we're able to access a wide variety of sounds in a variety of creative ways. We take this exploration of singing together in personal artistry and we turn it into conversation, and we sing for each other quite a bit, especially during the quarantine. We would have Zoom meetings every Monday. Every Monday we've met now since March, including just yesterday, Monday, 2 days ago, we met in the park, physically distanced. We're doing that every other week now, hanging out. But someone always sings. in those gatherings. Someone is always singing, and we share boost ups with each other, and we have conversation not only about the music but about the topics related to the songs. This then leads to the ability to create collaboratively. Now the singers are writing duets together. They are adding components to the songs that we are co-creating as a group, instrumental parts, freestyle raps, and spoken word and harmony and things of that nature. It's this cycle of creativity, and this is what I mean by awakening their expression. I believe this model works with our traditional choirs, friends. With church choirs, think about how we can use the same thing by empowering our church singers who may be reticent to sing along at first. But once we can get them to sing a passage of a phrase, and we can talk about those deep words of faith that we all have been sustained by and that we have some similar belief in, it leads us to doing other artistic endeavors and creative endeavors that we might not think possible. So don't underestimate the importance of this type of cycle for yourself. It's especially important when we're looking at creating a space for people who come from traditions outside of notated score, that we allow opportunity to express ourselves personally, we allow opportunities to collaborate and to freestyle or improvise, and then we have conversation about it to impact what we've done together. Access. Access is the freedom or ability to make use of something, to get at or to be able to use something. There's not really a great definition of it. We just kind of know what access is. It's like you either have it or you don't. I've alluded to this before. In starting SOTA, after I set out the goals, I had to think about what are the barriers. Cost. I knew that if I really was going to get a diverse group of participants socioeconomically, we've got to do something about cost. And so we were able to make the decision to eliminate the cost completely thanks to some grant funding the first year and some fundraising. Transportation. Knowing that you're dealing with high school students who, if you give them the opportunity to make an excuse, they're going to choose something else and not be committed. So we made that our number one goal. The first year, because Minneapolis St. Paul doesn't have great public transit, we used school-approved taxi cabs. It was a nightmare. I mean, it worked, but we were coordinating with taxi cab drivers and dispatch nonstop. I hired someone who is our choir manager to this day. That was mainly her job, was to facilitate 20 taxis every rehearsal. But the idea that we picked them up from school, we brought them to Augsburg University, where we did study hall, we fed them dinner as a part of the rehearsal process, and then we take them home to their home. Right there, we've eliminated two things that would keep many students from participating. Representation, which you've heard me talking about. We had to think about, is everyone going to see someone that looks like them in the program? Not just in the participants, but in the leadership. And so this is where it's important to collaborate with diverse artists so that every singer at some point either sees an artist who looks like them, or we sing something from their background, in their language, in their tradition, so they feel that representation. Again, I fall into this category too. Remember what I said, my true confession earlier. I am a part of the white Eurocentric choral music. I love me some J.S. Bach. We could start singing Bach Cantata 121 right now. You know, Liz, let's go. You know, we can do B minor mass right now. That's my jam, right? But that's not everybody's jam. We've got to find something for everyone to feel like they see themselves in if we want them to be a part of our space. So there's this give and take of who's going to shift when and how are we going to shift together to meet in the middle to make space. It's kind of messy. We'll unpack that some. I just delved into repertoire right there. These are the four elements. Do I see people who look like me? Is the music going to be cool, something that I can identify with? Can we afford it? Can we get there? Those are the four elements that I said, if we can mitigate these four things and minimize them and make the repertoire work and the representation work, we're going to be successful. And we have been successful because we've created this access. So I want you to begin to think about, what are the things that are problematic or challenging in your organization? I talked about our unique process for joining the choir, let me say a word about that for you. There's no auditions. The singers go to Flipgrid and they send me a video. I just ask them to sing anything they want. I give them a time limit, and then I ask them to dance. It can be the worm, it can be something real, but I just need to know that they'll move. Then from there, they have to answer a couple of questions of why they want to be in the choir, what grade they're in, and what their hobbies are. After they've sent that to me, I give them a call, and we have a conversation about what I've heard, what I've seen, and get to know them a little bit, and invite them to come test out a rehearsal if they're interested. If they say yes, then I talk to their parents and have a phone call or an in-person meeting with their parents, explaining the program, letting them know what it is. And if the parents are on board, then they come to a rehearsal. After they've tested that first rehearsal, if they feel like it's a good fit and I feel like it's a good fit, they're in the choir. I don't turn people away because they don't sing a certain way or a certain ability level. It's really been amazing in that sense of it's worked out. And yes, there's some growing edges and some training to do, and people are all over the spectrum with ability. But what I've learned there is by creating this dynamic community where we lean on each other and we trust each other and we are willing to lean into the supports that are around us, it all works out. And the students equally love singing the music from the Western European canon and musics from around the world, as well as the music that we create together. Inclusion, in the red there is the definition that you see in dictionaries. The act or practice, just those very words right there makes it really feel institutional, right? And kind of swarmy. It doesn't feel like authentic. The act or practice of including and accommodating, how dare you, accommodating people who have been historically excluded because of their race, gender, sexuality, or ability. I kind of make a big deal about that because I'm beginning to move away from the word inclusion to the word of belonging. In my mind, inclusion should be creating a space where everyone knows that they belong. So think about inclusion that way. Are we doing this to check boxes? Or are we doing this to really create a unique and genuine place where people can, take their shoes off and put their feet up on the table and say, I'm at home? That's a big one for our organizations to think about. I know it is for us at Vocal Essence. It's really daunting to think, yes, we want everyone to belong, but what are we willing to sacrifice so that others can call this place home? Here's a little snippet of a few of our singers talking about their experiences in SOTA before we go to our breakout room shortly. Margaret, I want to start with you. You've just graduated now. Congratulations, off to college. What are you going to remember most about your SOTA experience?
I think I will remember the unconditional love and support in all different types of ways, vocal and just my friends being there for me, and for you being there for me with academics and with music, and even offering to visit me at work for job interviews and things.
Margaret is known as the alto mom. Yeah. Jade, you're kind of the unofficial leader of the bass section. Talk to me about how SOTA has helped you develop those leadership skills.
In the beginning, I was quite the introvert, and I suppose the frustration of not being heard sort of urged me to I guess, push the new basses into, greater, skill and, have more pride in their singing. So, I guess I just sort of, I'm not quite the mom or dad of the section, but, I think of myself more as like a mentor, I guess to...
You lead by example. Yeah, you do lead by example. And Margaret, you do the same thing. You lead by example. And Yi and Claire, you got to join us this year for the first year in SOTA. And I'm curious, Yi, tell me what SOTA has been like for you. What has this experience meant to you this year?
Actually, it's very amazing. Like, I get to interact with such a variety of people because we come from all different backgrounds. And this is something that, I've never really experienced before, so I really enjoyed it. And with, how the years, it's been a little strange, but, we still made it work, and we're still, connecting and calling every day, every Monday.
Fantastic. We do stay in touch every Monday. It's great to see you all on Zoom and now in the parks when we're physically distanced. Claire, you were a very passionate musician before you joined SOTA. You kind of found us a little late and then you jumped right in. Are you glad you made the decision to join us in SOTA?
Yes, definitely. I was a little nervous in the beginning. My first day, I wasn't really sure what it was going to be like. And then someone came up and hugged me out of the blue. And I think that tells you what kind of person is in SOTA. It's one of the most inclusive groups I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I can't wait for next year.
So that was a part of our Vocal Essence Gala. We recorded that live, one take, no preparation. I just love that they speak from their hearts there. I'm going to come back and let you meet Kayla at the very end here after we come from the rooms. Get to equity. Equity and equality often get confused, and I'm sure you all have seen a couple of the pictures there where you have the people in the box, and this picture's come under fire lately. Just to boil it down, equality is everyone getting the same thing, right? Equity is everyone getting exactly what they need for that moment, that situation. What intervention do you need to be successful? So when we think about equity, what can we provide for person A in the soprano section that they need, which very well may be different from what person B needs in the bass section. As choral directors, we do this quite often, and we do this quite well. As voice teachers, we do this quite well in our studios, right? We give the students the specific instruction that they need in the moment, the tip, the hint, the pedagogical insight that they need in the moment, and we differentiate that, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. But yet when it comes to talking about issues of equity on a wider scale, we like to think of it as a one-size-fits-all. And so what I'm going to tell you, friends, is that equity means is that we're going to treat everybody the same by treating them differently. That's how I run my programs. Everyone, yes, there are some basic policies that we all adhere to, but everyone's going to get a little bit different treatment based on what they need in the moment to be successful. So as you unpack equity in your organization and in your work, what are the ways that you can begin to attend to on a more personalized level and individualized level where you can make your space, your table, more equitable for others to be a part of it? With that, it takes us back to our beginning to think about the places where you've celebrated and amplified voices of colors, cultures of color, commissioned composers of color, hired artists of color, or developed programs to reduce barriers to participation, or made programming accessible to communities of color, much like the vocal essence singers of this age. So it's almost uncomfortable to spend that much time talking about something I love so much. Again, Liz asked me to do that as kind of the entry point just for this whole set of conversations. But hopefully you can see how the talk about VE SOTA is to give you a framework, one recipe, not a cookie cutter, not a one size fit all, but something that you can look at, an organization or an ensemble that's a part of a larger organization that is actually bringing the whole organization into a more equitable and inclusive and accessible space. So if we can do it at Vocal Essence, you can do it wherever you are. So as you go to the breakout rooms, I want you to have conversations about those 6 topics there if you wish, but most importantly, and take a screenshot of this if you want to, let's clarify your purpose and talk openly and honestly about why you're here, what are your core values, and where do you feel the dissonances? Based on the things I've presented today, what's going to be the most challenging, the most uncomfortable perhaps that you're going to want to lean into? So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Liz and give you all, we'll do like 18 or 19 minutes. We'll do as much time as we can and then come back for the last minute of see you later, bye. Liz?